All right, guys, welcome to the first of hopefully many Facebook Live shows. We still haven't come up with a cool name yet, but we'll get there. As you can see, we have a very, very special guest, Pastor Steve. How's it going, man?
Going great.
Yeah?
Yeah, pretty
Feeling
good.
all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. we're doing the best that we can. Guys, thank you so much for being patient. Obviously, we're a little behind the proposed schedule, but I think we're gonna be good. So
That's my fault.
no, it's not. It's all right. So we've got something really cool that we want to do today. We've already got 7 people watching.
Sweet.
That did not take very long.
Hey.
All right, guys.
Somebody's on. That's cool.
We are going to be looking at the chat as much as we can. We'll be interacting with you guys, but we want to address something really cool today, something that's really important to us as a church, and so that's why I brought Steve on, because I think he's going to have a really, really good something to share with you guys today about this topic, and that is worship. What is worship? This is something that, like I just said, it's such a high value for us as a church. One of our distinctives is having really, really great music, really great worship, and so this is something we love to talk about, but we want to kind of dive into it in a little bit more deep way. But I want to set up our special guest, because I'm really just going to just set the stage and let him go off. Pastor Steve, you've been a worship pastor for many years, obviously lead pastor of the church, so worship and shaping what that looks like is really important. That's like your job. Yeah. So I just want to give you a platform and just kind of, I'll pose a couple of questions, but first off, just what is worship? What does that mean to you? When someone asks you, what does it mean to worship?
Right. Well, by the way, thanks for getting all this together, Ricky. I think it's a really cool thing, and we'd love to hear from anybody that has any questions or wants to ask. And so you gave me this question a few days ago, what is worship, which is, a huge question. But I think you said something, a key word, and that was shaping, and the root of the word worship is worth shape. Mm-hmm. And really, it's something that most people do organically and don't even realize it, is the fact that whatever we worship, that our value is actually determined by whatever that is. Mm-hmm. I was thinking on my drive over here, because I was late, the verse that said that we should not have any other gods before us. It's the first commandment. Mm-hmm. And everybody has little g gods, right? We all have them in life. I have them, whether it's Alabama football or outdoor stuff. And there is nothing per se wrong with these things that we tend to get value and worth from, education, how we look, our families. Mm-hmm. But the key is what gives us the most value and worth at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And that really is the key meaning behind the word worship. Right. Probably like many people for many years, I thought worship was music, mm-hmm. and the 30 minutes, or in the Assemblies of God, the hour and a half we spent singing and praising God. But really, worship is about the thing in your life, mm-hmm. that gives you and shapes your value, your self-esteem, mm-hmm. and to me, worshiping God is really a pursuit of making Him every day the most important thing. And the coolest thing is when we all come together in a church service, what mm-hmm. we call corporate worship, to actually be shaped together as a one unit, which Jesus prayed for, unity in the body. Mm-hmm. And there's a power to that when we worship together, when we're all being shaped together, it's a opportunity to encounter God on a level that ultimately will change you if you worship Him, as Jesus said, in spirit and in truth.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think you keyed on something that I think is really important, and that's in the fact that we use the word worship, and that's usually you hear that word in the church context a lot, or in the Christian context, but you can worship anything.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so you kind of touched on the idea of idol worship, but when you're worshiping something, that you're giving that thing time, so you soak your time into whatever this thing is. And for me, I've gone through a lot of things where I've struggled with really worshiping things besides God and
Absolutely.
letting other things get in the way of that. Like, you know, for me, it's video games. I know you've struggled with that.
Sure.
That's something that could be really difficult. Sometimes it's sports. You know, I just will spend so much time looking at statistics. I know I play fantasy football. I don't know if you guys play fantasy. Steve played last year. And so the temptation to just really soak so much time into that kind of stuff is always there. So that's really good that we kind of point that out and say, you know, worshiping is not something, if you let it get out of hand, you can worship these other things that don't deserve to be worshipped. Because there's only one person that's worthy of worship. And so we're going to, I think that's really good to key in on.
Yeah.
But something else that I wanted to ask you, Steve, is, you know, if you've been in the church world, you may have heard of the idea of worship as a lifestyle. Like, worship is not just
Sure.
something that you do on weekends. It's not just music. It's how you live. So I want to set up that dichotomy and let you kind of explain, you know, your interpretation of what's the difference between worship as a lifestyle, living worship, versus just, you know, worship through music.
Yeah, well, I think worship as a lifestyle really gets back to what is determining my value.
Right.
Worship is about how you think, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, at the core of my thoughts, how they're filtered,
Mm-hmm.
negatively or positively, who I am, right?
Right.
So for me, an example was, for many years, I didn't even realize it. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a big Alabama Crimson Tide fan.
Yeah.
And for many years, we didn't win. We're having some great years now. But one of the things I started noticing was too many things that I would do or not do on a Saturday, or if they lost or won, or what people said, what I put on my truck or wore, those kind of things. I started to see that it was definitely an idol in my life, to the point that it shaped my thoughts and my value a little too much, and it was creeping up on. It was a lifestyle for me in Alabama. You know, if you lived in Alabama, especially, it was a lifestyle. And there's many things, like you mentioned, sports. I used to watch a lot of sports, but it can be. Here's what I know: you can worship church and Christianity,
Yeah.
and not worship God.
Oh.
It can be your sort of identity
Yeah.
as a rule keeper, and I'm this, but you don't really have that lifestyle, that walking with, that in the spirit connection with Jesus Christ, who is constantly shaping your thoughts, your heart, and your mind toward everything.
Yeah.
Every filter goes through Jesus, not through the idea of church, and
Yeah.
that's really kind of a more, deeper thought about the worship as a lifestyle,
Yeah.
not as, a music or those things.
Yeah, so at the risk of going too far into that rabbit hole,
Right.
like, you mentioned, having that really, personal, intimate connection with Jesus, and like having that like shape what worship looks like for you. So if you've not been in church and you don't really know what that means, what does that mean to you, Steve, to really pursue an intimate connection with Jesus? How does that work on a week-to-week basis, or if you're here on a weekend, like and you're seeking that connection with Jesus, how would you go about doing that? What does that look like for you?
A great example is, as you know, I took a sick day today, so I was late for the Facebook Live. But for me, and again, there's a great book called Sacred Pathways, and it's how we connect with God through different various means. Everybody connects through certain tools, Bible reading, prayer, songs, praise, all those kind of things. But sometimes that path looks a little different for different people.
Sure.
Sometimes more people are connected to God in the outdoors. Some people connect better in groups rather than alone, and I'm not here to debate what that may or may not be, but for me, even today, going through some back issues and just some stressful stuff, for me, I sat down to the piano and just began to play, and my gift of musicianship I used to worship God. It just and no, there is no audience except for that one person, because my kids don't care if they're walking through. But I really get lost in this ability to play and even make a new song as I begin to sing. And there's a connection there with
Right.
Jesus. But, that can happen through building something.
Yeah.
With a saw. It
Yeah.
can happen through taking a walk. It can happen through doing housework.
Yeah.
It can happen through a shopping trip. You can use anything as a time to connect with Jesus Christ. Music is a gift for humans, obviously, that God created.
Right.
There's something very special about that. but it's not just music. And that's back to this whole, whatever you do in life, do it as unto the Lord, Colossians 3. That's just worship. That's spirit and that's truth, and that's a beautiful thing, walking in the Spirit, really, to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's. I think that's such an important thing, and kind of what I really wanted to capitalize on today. You know, when we're answering the question, what is worship? You know, I think it's the temptation, and you just mentioned this, the temptation is to, when you hear the word worship, you kind of key in and think music. But it's not just music. And there are so many people who aren't musical. In fact, I have a friend, I've actually recently converted him and got him to like music, but he had a really negative attitude towards worship through music, because he's just like, you know, I don't like music. Like, it's just not my thing. And so for him, that was a wall. You know, he couldn't get past this thing, like, okay, well, I can't engage, you know, in that part of the service. It's a total waste of time for me because I don't like music. And I was telling him, you know, you're ignoring the whole aspect of a connection with Jesus, and it doesn't have to be music for you. It can be anything, you know.
Absolutely.
like Steve just saying. But you know, the Lord has worked on his heart, and he's since picked up bass. So
hey, there you go.
he's learned how to play bass, which is really cool. So we're excited about that. But you know, we'll take a slightly different turn here, and I wanna ask you, you know, specifically about, you know, worship. You mentioned what was the word? Worship as a community, or congregational worship, or you used another C word. That was good.
Corporate.
That's what I'm looking for. Worship as a body, you know, and so
Same
that looks, that, you know, we do that on weekend services through music. And so, you know, there are a few things that if you visit us on a weekend service that you might see, you know, as part of our worship through music. You might see people lifting their hands. You might hear people singing. You might hear people shouting. You might hear people clapping. And so I just wanted to, you know, we recently did a series where we went through the Hebrew words for each of those actions, and we went through the biblical basis for why we do these things. But I just wanted to give you a chance, Steve, to kind of really quickly, just the Cliff Notes version, talk about, you know, some of the scriptural support for some of those outward actions of worship that you know, people might think of when you think of, like, how to worship. You know, so, you know, say they've gotten to a place where, you know, I know that, you know, I can feel this, you know, the Spirit, you know, moving in my heart when we're worshiping in through music, you know, on the weekend services, but I don't really know what to do. Like, I feel like I should move my body, but I don't know what or how or why. Or maybe you're from the other side of the aisle where, you know, your experience in church worship has been very reserved, and it's very introspective, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, you know, pretty much every weekend we make a point of saying, hey, however you want to worship, that's okay. But we encourage people to get active. And so why is that, Steve?
All right, so that's like a can that we'll try to hit the very surface.
Not too deep.
We'll take the lid off and lick the lid. How about that? So I'm trying to gather some thoughts. Well, I think the most fundamental thing, if I were telling someone brand new to the faith, or even someone looking at Christians and go, why do you do this? What about reserved worship versus, you know, more demonstrative worship? So here we say things at Deep Creek sometimes that I feel like are a big mistake. All right, so I'm going to confess a sin.
Being real love.
Sometimes in our welcome we say, whatever you're comfortable doing, do that in our worship service. But that really is not a correct statement. If we were saying it churchy wise, we'd say it's not theologically correct, because worship is not about what you're comfortable doing. It's actually a discipline to do something that breaks you out of the chains of the things that get on us in the world, just the heaviness of living in a world that's not of Christ. And so we really, as a believer, should do the things the Bible commands.
Sure.
Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Well,
That's
the first thing he said, the most important commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength.
That's right.
So I would ask you, what do you love with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength? Is it your sports team? Is it watching your kid, you know, compete in a dance competition? And if they do great and win, what are you going to do with your body?
Yeah, you're going to go nuts.
That is it.
Yeah.
To me, the way I would talk to and encourage a person about worshiping is whatever thing that gets you most excited because really the demonstration of worship is an excitement and a joy in you so much that you can't contain it, and you should outwardly, lifting your hands is just a natural yay.
Yeah.
Or if you're just kind of swaying to music or something, you're going to move, or and so those should be natural. We call it natural outflows
Right.
of the human creation,
Right.
but it should go mostly to the thing that you value the most
Right.
and shapes your value the most. And unfortunately, many people don't do that for God as much as they do for other things.
Yeah.
And I've been guilty of it as well.
Yeah,
God really convicted me about the football and sports thing at one point in my life and went, dude, if you're going to scream and yell for a football game and you don't do it in church, you have an idol problem.
Yeah.
You need to pull that idol down. And I really had to throttle back on, where my heart was at toward, sports and a lot of different things like that. But and there's nothing wrong with sports as long as it doesn't become the God in
Right.
our lives. It can be something we enjoy and get a lot out of, and I still do, but it is definitely not the thing that I'm most excited about. I
Right.
get most excited, when we watch a person get baptized.
Yeah.
There's no greater championship on the planet.
That's right.
And I stand, I yell, I used to be a little bit like, I don't want to draw attention to myself, and there is something to that. You don't want to draw attention to yourself, but neither do you want to restrict your worship for God by not doing something that's a natural expression to
That's right.
Him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we try to create an environment, on our weekend services where you can feel comfortable and free to do that.
Absolutely.
And we try to
Yeah.
model it, but yeah, I mean, this
And
weekend
it feels good.
Yeah, it does.
And whenever, here's the deal. Can I interject one quick
Take it.
thing?
Yeah.
I remember when the church was like 25 people. It
Mm.
wasn't that long ago. And so we had people from all different denominations and backgrounds.
Yeah.
And of course, us charismatic Pentecostals are more used to demonstrative worship. But
Oh,
we
yeah.
have people from Catholic backgrounds, Baptist, Methodist.
Yeah.
Not that those people don't typically worship demonstratively, but it's not as often as you would see in some of the other backgrounds.
Sure.
I think it's different today than it was even 20 years ago. But I remember someone coming up to me and going, I'm having a hard time worshiping at Deep Creek because nobody else lifts their hands. And I remember God prompting me to say to that person, listen, in every church, in every movement, in every when people come to know Christ, there's always one person that does it first. There's one leader, and the worship leader shouldn't just be that man or woman, that boy or girl on the stage leading. I mean, that is part of their ministry and gifting to do that. But ultimately, somebody in that body, in that group of people that are sitting in a church, somebody's going to go, Lord, I love you, and I surrender myself to you, and here's my heart, and I'm just so glad to be here. And, I encourage you, if you're in a church or in a situation where you're not sure about it or you're worried what people will think, get that out of your mind and just take that first step. And ultimately, your courage to worship openly will give someone else the courage, will free them
Absolutely.
to also worship. And that's how it starts in every church.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's so important, and I'm glad you mentioned that. But you just I want to encourage you this weekend. If maybe you come all the time and you've never just, taken that step outside your comfort zone to lift your hands or to clap, or maybe you just stumbled upon this live feed and you're not plugged into a church and you want to visit us this weekend. I want to encourage you, take that step out of your comfort zone this weekend. We're going to do some awesome songs, and it's going to be a really good time. So just, I encourage you, when we get into that song and you feel your foot tapping and you just get
Go with it, yeah.
just let loose, and I promise you, when you submit and you say, Lord, I can feel that you're here. You want to do something, and you submit to that, and you're going to feel that tug. There's going to be something awesome that happens. I can guarantee it.
Yep.
So, cool. All right. Any other thoughts, Steve, that you got?
No, I think the thing that, I grew up being very skeptical about worship.
Yeah.
I thought everybody's just was conforming to a system.
Yeah.
And, you would see people that worshiped, yet they weren't living a perfect life. And so, don't use other people's stuff as an excuse not to worship God.
That's right.
This is not about what other people do or don't do. This is about what you do between your relationship with Christ. And man, church is so much more fun when you actually enter into worship.
That's right.
Corporately. And I'm going to tell you, when you learn to worship behind the scenes and just pray and sing and do whatever you do, build, play, work as unto God, man, I tell you, it brings amazing power, freedom to your life.
Yeah.
And so everybody take that first step. If it's, if it's just a small lifting of your hand, it doesn't have to be like, whoa, full out first time.
Yeah. We're not challenging you to start running laps around the room like you. You can take it in baby steps.
Yeah, and I also want to challenge this notion that there are two different kinds of worship music. I was thinking about this coming over here. There's the term praise and worship, and a lot of people think fast songs are praise and slow songs are worship, and even we talk about that sometimes. But actually, if you think about it, when you praise something, you are glorifying that. You're bringing glory to it, and really praise is just a part of worship.
Yeah.
We just kind of think, for whatever reason, in church circles especially, that worship is kind of the slower stuff.
Right.
But it's really not. There's not a speed to it. I think there can be different emotions and intensities to it. And so praise is just a part of that beautiful experience of worship. And one of the things we're big on, and in this culture that is really focused on slower worship, we believe that praise and joy, especially for people that are coming into this setting every week, people want to be lifted up. Right. And then when you get free, then you can enter in this intimate conversation through worship, through a slower, intimate time. Yeah. And that's kind of why we flow from fast to slow sometimes. So I just give you a little explanation of that while we do it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to encourage you. This week we're going to do praise, we're going to do worship. So, I know there's somebody watching this broadcast, and I like to say this all the time. There's somebody watching this that is skeptical. They've been hurt. Maybe you're carrying a burden. I know I'm carrying something. You're probably carrying something. And so I just want to encourage you this weekend. If you haven't come and checked this out before, just give it a chance. Come in here, lay your burden down, and watch what God does. If you've been here, for years and years, maybe you've been here since the beginning for all 16 years. And you haven't taken that step into just truly surrendering to what God has for you, on a week-to-week basis in our services. I just want to encourage you, just do it. Just give it a shot and watch what the Lord does. So it's going to be really awesome. And I can say that boldly because it's not going to be anything that, I'm going to do on the stage. It's not going to be anything that Steve says. It's going to be the Holy Spirit just showing up in the place, and we invite him, and he's there, and he's going to do something awesome. It's going to be really cool. So, all right. Anything else you wanted to put on your heart?
Thank you if you joined us today. Thank you for that, and we hope that your week would be blessed. And go worship at your house now. Have fun with that.
Speaking of that, what are you listening to these days? What's on your playlist?
Oh man,
we all want to know. Everybody wants to know.
Dude, I'm old. I'm old school. You know me. I listen to a very eclectic
good mix
stuff. I listen to. I got to tell you, I love Ashmont Hill. They're kind of a go-to. They're actually not recording anymore, but I really love I Am They. I've been listening to, we did a song by them.
Yeah.
They have a really cool style, I Am They, but that's it. I'm all over the map as far as, different worship groups and styles. Obviously, coming from Alabama, the Church of the Highlands, their new project was awesome, and we're doing a couple songs from that. So,
awesome.
It's cool.
Cool, guys. Well, we want to give you a chance to ask questions. We're going to hang out here for a few more minutes. We're going to be eyeing the chat. Ask a question. Do you have anything that we've said kind of perk your interest that you're like, can you clarify that maybe? Or maybe you're just wanting to know some more. Maybe you have something else that you're specific, you want to ask about in regards to worship. Go ahead, give it a shot.
This is always the awkward pause waiting for questions.
No, it's all good. It's cool to see all these people jump in. Hannah's on. You got Hannah watching. Mike Bladorn, Kathy Paradise. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Thanks for joining.
Hold on, I'm trying to see who else is on here. Eli Zamaz watching.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Taylor Vespucci. What's going on, guys? Lots of people are just like, We should wave back.
Yeah.
Lots of people waving.
What up?
What's up, y'all?
Light bulb wave. Here we go.
Josh Hughes, Jennifer Wolf. Man, pretty cool. I think we at peak we had like over 30 people watching, which is pretty cool for the first show.
Yeah, man.
That's really cool.
It's the cool back wall.
Christopher Allen wants to know: does Steve still listen to Steadfast?
Oh, who asked that question?
Christopher Allen.
Oh, Chris. Dude, Chris, what up, man? So Chris was the sound man, our sound man for
cool.
Steadfast.
Oh.
One of my best friends. And how you doing,
Oh,
bro?
that's the name of your band.
Steadfast.
Oh,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
so cool. The answer is yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
He absolutely still listens to it.
I pull out the clips.
Okay, so what's funny about is Steadfast the group that you're in that video that we watched a while back? So we found a really cool clip of Steve in Steadfast. It's really cool. Chris, you might remember it. But you were wearing like a trench coat or something with some really cool boots, and it was a really good video, guys.
Those boots would be hipster now.
They would. Were they Doc Martens?
They were probably Florishams because that's what my dad wore, and I
Okay.
stole them from him.
Those are probably back in style, okay? So, definitely. Anything else, guys? We'll hang out for a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Anything else you guys want to know? Man. Ryan Handelin, do you remember him? Says, miss you, Steve.
What's up? What's up, Ryan?
Rachel Clancy, how's it going?
Rachel, how's Matt? Good to see you.
Oh, Chris remembers he was there.
Oh, yeah, I know he was there. He's in the video.
All right, guys.
So what's everybody else listening to worship-wise if you're logged on right now?
Yeah, if you're still on with us.
What do you go to and listen to in times of worship at home? Kind of share that with us.
Kathy wants to know when the next encounter is.
We're working on the
next encounter.
Yeah. Be watching for that because that's
Yeah.
a night of worship, corporate worship, and it's awesome.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, we like to do these nights of worship where we gather together. Both campuses get together at one of our campuses, and we just really dive deep into the presence of the Lord and worship, and it's an awesome experience. That we're always limited by time and weekend services. You know, we're trying to stay respectful of kids and all. There's lots of factors that can limit what we're able to do in weekend services. So we set these special times aside that we can really just pursue the Lord and worship, and it's
Very
really
important.
sweet.
Yes.
So all right. Okay, guys. Any closing remarks, Steve, you want to use to finish it up?
No, I just, again, I think there is, if you're not pushing the envelope in worship, and by that I mean doing things like lifting your hands, bowing your heart, really digging in during that song or that reflective time, going, God, I want to touch you. I want to hear from you. You're really missing something, an experience. I mean, it's really hard to explain, but here's what I say about worship. Mm-hmm. Anytime anyone encounters God, they will be changed for the better.
That's right.
But you're like the woman who had the disease for all of her life. Mm-hmm. She had to press through the crowd to touch God. Yeah. Sometimes we have to press through the stress of the day, the distractions of the fight you had with your wife on the way to church.
Yeah.
Just the junk of life. And there are many days even where I will step up or come to church as a pastor and really not be feeling it.
Yeah.
And one thing I've learned as an emotional artist is you can touch God, but you've got to lead your feelings, not follow your feelings.
Right.
And that's why lifting your hands and bowing your knee or bowing your heart, opening up and singing when you don't feel like it, you're literally pushing through the crowd of your mind and life. But man, when you touch God, literally things in your life will change instantly for the better.
That's right.
You will not be the same. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so I encourage you, if you're not sure what we're talking about, find someone that you trust who's a mature Christian, who understands it maybe a little more. Email us, write us, drop a comment on Facebook, and we would love to give you some material, scriptures, all those kind of things that will help you get to that place.
Yep.
And man, once you get there, you never want to go back to not getting
That's
there, right?
Yeah, if you need resources, if you're curious, want to know more, check out our website. We've got a webpage devoted just for people like you. It's dc3.tv/nextstep, and that will give you everything that we need to know. That will definitely put you on the right track. But you can reach out to us just like Steve said. You can give us a call. Check out our website, dc3.tv. Drop a comment on Facebook. We'll follow up with you. But yeah, we would love to connect with you and get you started on that track to really having that close, personal, intimate relationship with Jesus that we're talking about.
Sweet.
So, all right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Steve.
Real love, real people, baby.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you
for showing up.
Thank you to Steve for taking time out of a sick day. He's not feeling great,
Right.
so it's amazing that he's here. Guys, we will see you next week at 3:30-ish. We'll see what happens.
That's the DC3
way. Real love, real
3:30-ish.
people. We'll see you next week. I'm gonna have Pastor Cliff on. We're gonna talk.
Sweet.
We're gonna talk about the Bible. It's gonna be really, really good.
Nice.
So we'll see you next week, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Okay.